I want to be in that permanent elevated state that I've felt,
Not possible.
and that's what I want. Well, funnily enough, that not possible is a limiting belief,
Oh, I guess, yeah,
and
for sure.
and don't worry, I pick myself up on my own limiting beliefs all the time. So I developed my own affirmation, which is I wake up happy and excited every single day. And when I say that to some people, they go, "Yeah, but that's not realistic, is it?" And it's like, that's up
It's
to
my
you.
reality. Yeah, right.
And what I actually mean when I say that is that that's my expectation. That's my holding myself up to the highest of
Right.
standards of I'm going to be here for who knows another 40 years. I want to wake up happy and excited every single day. Who wouldn't want to? And so if ever I wake up and I don't feel like that, instead of blaming the world's chaos, the colleague at work that I don't like or anything else, I say to myself, what is it I'm neglecting about myself right now?
Today, I sit down with Phil Jordan, a professional coach. 6 years ago, he made a promise to himself: no more alcohol. He didn't know what the future would look like. He just knew he needed something different. Today, he's standing with a full heart, filled with gratitude, reflecting on a life that has become, in his words, more beautiful than he ever thought possible.
After a few years of solid sobriety, I decided to join the conversation. Each week, I sit down with a different guest, from authors and experts to everyday folks, to explore what it means to live sober and free. Whether you're navigating the journey or simply curious, we're here to offer support and connection.
Okay.
All right. So my guest today is Phil Jordan, and he is a coach, and he can tell us more about what kind of coach he is. And we met in various sober groups, perhaps sober and free, perhaps just watching each other as sober coaches in this space tend to do. And I reached out to him, he reached out to me, and we started chatting. And I invited him to come on the podcast. So I'm thrilled that he said yes, and we've been able to carve out a little bit of time. So if you don't mind introducing yourself to us, Phil, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you very much for reaching out and then also inviting me on. So I'm really grateful for that. So I'm Phil. I guess we talk about the length of time. I'm just celebrated 6 years of sobriety. I am a transformational life coach, which I trained in just after 12 months, I think, of sobriety, about 18 months. Also an NLP practitioner, which is one of my favorite tools to use with people. And I provide support coaching generally, but also 28-day challenges for those people who are looking to take a break, but are actually struggling to get going.
I love that. Neurolinguistic pathway.
Program.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that. And that's quite an anniversary. 6 years. Wow.
Yeah, who'd have thought it? Do you know, I have this kind of, I don't know if fantasy is the right word, but I would love, and I've said it before, even earlier than 6 years, I'd love the version of me now to go back and visit the version of me on day one or just before day one, just to see the reaction. First of all, I'd be intrigued to see former me, but also the response and reaction of me at that time to this weird person turning up and talking the way I talk now and thinking the way I think and but in some ways to thank that person, because I'm in a great place. I feel strong. I'm secure and everything. But the person who started this journey was the most vulnerable version of me and the most courageous. So I'd like to go back and thank them as well.
Yeah, I love the way you put that, because you're right. You know, people who have been in a war, in trauma, tend to have the capacity for greater joy. And without that guy who struggled, without if you want to look at it as another person almost. And me too, with my former self, without her and him just struggling and just hating it. We may not feel the depth of gratitude, joy, and presence that we are able to feel.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're starting very much in your emotional, physical, mental overdraft, aren't you? In huge debt when we start off in this journey. So I often say with my journey itself that on the days when it feels great, it's not a challenge, is it? You feel wonderful, and I do lots of running. So when I'm jumping out the front door with a skip in my step, high-fiving the postman on the way past and running, that's great. But it's easy. It's the days when you don't want to do things. It's the days when you don't feel like showing up. That's the challenge. And I think that's the bit that...
Well, and I think that's where the magic happens, because I can be steady on those days. On the difficult days, I don't have to strong arm myself, but I can still practice the tools that we've learned in the work, which is, well, why don't I just do 20 minutes?
Yeah.
So why don't I just get to halfway down that page? Well, why? And that's a tool, because I think it's based in trust, that I trust myself to be able to do this. And I trust myself, or I trust also some kind of divinity around me, angels, God, whatever. If it's something more challenging than that, that it will be there for me, so that I don't know, it's this dance that we do now. And we can go through.
It is. And I think it's also that awareness, isn't it? Because, using my running as an example, the typical things that I might hear are things like, you had a hard day at work today and actually running out of time, or you haven't eaten, or you've eaten, or the weather's a bit bad. All this kind of stuff that's trying to almost provide you with an option to not do it, can just sit and just be observed as I'm putting my trainers on, grumbling to myself to go out, because you learn to start to recognize that those are just thoughts.
Yeah, there's no reason except for the reason to continue. That is the reason that you tend to, that you can now choose to pivot and focus on. I used to listen to a lot of something called Abraham Hicks, but Abraham, which is, okay. Have you heard Esther Hicks? Yeah. And I really liked when she introduced the idea of pivot. When we think about a scenery all around in a room, in any scenery out in nature, it looks different all the way around. Well, we've used the word perspective a lot, so we know that there's different ways to look, but something concrete would be, a scenery. And if you pivot in your life, from the messaging, and maybe you had a bad night's sleep, but maybe the night before that it was good. And I sometimes say, well, why don't I pivot and focus on the fact that I probably have some reserves because I did have a good night 2 nights ago, and stuff like that. Pivot.
Yeah, and also we don't have to experience the run to know that we're going to feel better afterwards. You can actually know that before you do the run.
And your cells anticipate how they're going to feel afterwards. The same way we would get the dry mouth and the a little bit of, excitement when we'd be shopping for our drug.
Oh, yeah.
We'd already start feeling a little bit of the buzz.
Oh, absolutely. I remember skipping out the door on those days to the supermarket to get mine, certainly.
Yeah, exactly. So it's now something that's sustainable, because your runner's high will last a whole lot longer. A really hard, deep workout will last 36 hours. The hormones that are released into your body will last longer than getting drunk.
And I'm currently on day 597 of running every day. And what I found with that consistency is that I've ended the debate of should I, shouldn't I. It's just, there's no discussion to be had. I'm going to do it because I want to keep my streak up. So actually running every day has become easier than, say, picking Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday as a running day.
I did 17 months. I missed 6 days with an illness, 5 miles every day.
Wow.
No less, sometimes more, but no less. So 8 kilometers. And anyway, I had the 6-pack, the vein. I mean, I was as fit as one can get. And I practiced resistance training as well. Anyway, I worked out my whole life. I was a dancer for 20 years in the theater. So before showtime, we had to do a daily center bar, and depending on the contract I was on. So I was fit. And once you've been fit like that, it sort of demands that you feel like that all the time, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing I do, I'm sure you've heard of Atomic Habits and James Clear, is that I do.
I have it, but I haven't read it yet. I have a long
Oh, right.
list.
Okay. I mean, like with most books, if I just take one or two things from them, I'm happy that with the time it's taken to read them. But one of them is habit stacking. And when people struggle to create a new habit or form a new habit, and particularly when you're becoming alcohol free, and it's not just about stopping drinking, it's about finding new things and healthy ways to kind of express
yourself. A new neural pathway needs to be made.
Yeah, well, this is the perfect example of that. With habit stacking, is something you do routinely anyway. You attach a habit to it. So, for example, every morning I wake up about 5:30, 6 o'clock, go downstairs and put the kettle on, as we do in the UK, to make a cup of coffee. Now, I never wake up any morning and go, oh God, I've got to do that thing today where I go down and make that cup. It's such a, it's got its own reward. It's a habit. So there's that 2 minutes with the kettle in the UK. I don't know I think you use something different, but there's about 2 minutes where it takes to boil. And so you can just stand there and just be looking at the kettle thinking, I want me coffee. But in James Clear's book, that's a 2-minute opportunity to fill. So I started off by doing 10 press-ups a day. I wasn't very strong upwardly. But anyway, I do 50 press-ups every day now with that kettle. And the neural pathway is, if ever I'm anywhere else at any time of the day and I put the kettle on, I feel that compulsion to get down on the floor and start doing 50. So that, again, has just become an effortless thing to do. So, yeah, so that's what I found with consistency.
The exercising is effortless. I was doing a circuit training. So I set up 6 stations, 90 seconds, which is long if you're doing burpees.
Yeah.
Minute and a half. Like by the end, you've lost coordination. That's what that's what I want to be at the end of a circuit, because I'm just getting back into my circuit training. I ride my Peloton now. I can't run because of injury. 20 years of dance, lots of injury, breaks, broke my back, broke this and that. Anyway, point being, so at the end of 17 months, I had to stop running. I'm jumping all over the place, but that's my style. I had done the work for the brain. I'm really glad I did those 17 months, but now the body, we needed something softer. So got a Peloton. But with my circuit training, it's just so natural to, I did a podcast, and then somewhere in the day, 6 days a week, that's what I do now, 6 days a week, to do a circuit. And it has very little to do with, I never ask myself if I'm tired or not.
Yeah.
I just don't ask myself. So during the speed skating, one of my circuits was a speed skating. I did get to that place where I was like, I lost coordination. Like I literally couldn't move my leg, and it's fine. It's just like, I'm still going to go through the motion and get to the end of the 90 seconds. And I'm still going to do another set. You stop looking for comfort when it's time to work. And that's also a habit.
It is. And I was just thinking, as you were talking about, creating the identity that you aspire to be. And like in the past, my limiting beliefs was that I'm not the sort of person who goes out running very often. I'm the sort of person who likes having a drink and watching the football in the bars, and describing and defining ourselves when actually
limiting ourselves.
Yeah, because we're defining who our identity is. Where actually, I like to say I'm the sort of person who runs every day. I'm the sort of person who does 50 press-ups every day. I'm the sort of person who challenges myself in ultras. So creating that version of you that you want to be.
Yeah, there's a 9x9 guy. He walks 9 kilometers by 9 a.m. And he once said, I believe it was him. He's from the UK. I believe it was him that said, well, when you've decided to stop drinking, then on day one, you can be a winner. You can say, I'm a non-drinker. Like, it's what you tell yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I know that guy quite well as well.
Oh, wow. What's his name?
Do you know what? You're going to ask me now and it'll come back to me.
That's okay. It doesn't mean you don't know him. We're in our 50s. It's okay.
I know. We've spoke quite a few times as well. But yeah, he's a great example of that, where he found that he put himself on a mission to do 9 kilometers every day,
Yeah.
and I think he stretched that out for a couple of years as well. But
What
it
I
is.
love about him is, sorry, keep going.
It's okay.
I was
No,
just going to say, I love his self talk. His self talk is powerful.
Well, funnily enough, he also trained as an NLP practitioner.
Mm.
And neuro-linguistic, it's all about the language that you use. And then
So let's talk about that. We'll go to your story very briefly, or maybe we'll take some time with it. But because you're a coach, I think that the listeners are really benefiting from this conversation we're having right now. So tell us about neuro-linguistic programming and what we just said about self-talk. So how does it work?
So, I mean, just prior to training in neuro-linguistic programming, I trained as a transformational life coach. And the transformational bit was more about not just setting almost like surface level goals and things. It was actually going more deeper within. So the example would be if someone comes to a coach because they want to lose weight, then a coach will just set them a program, won't they, of calorie deficit and maybe some training and stuff like that, where the transformational life coaching wouldn't focus on that. It would, when someone said, I want to lose weight, you'd ask more questions around why are you so unhappy? You know, it would actually reframe questions so that you'd actually look at what are the root causes of this, because anyone can set you a program, but what's actually the emotional drivers behind this? And then when I trained in neuro-linguistic programming, it was just fascinating because that it's kind of akin to hypnosis, but hypnosis goes a little bit deeper. But actually, the way we define ourselves through the language that we use about ourselves, it's that self-fulfilling, it's that manifesting, it's all that. It's kind of linked to that. But what I particularly find interesting with neuro-linguistic programming is a thing called timeline therapy. So the beliefs that we develop from a very young age. And if you think about it, we are all born perfect. If you've had kids, beautiful, perfect, unashamed, not concerned about demanding what they need. They're hungry. They want a hug. They want comfort. You know, unashamed. And with the beliefs that we pick up when we're younger, usually by no one's fault, but they are the things that actually start to shape us and start to define how we interact with the world and how we begin to believe certain things about ourselves. An example I'll give you is a lady that I worked with a couple of years ago, and she believed that she was ugly. Now, not just in an aesthetic way, but actually as an adult, she didn't like to be the center of attention. She liked to stay in the background. She didn't like to, she felt uncomfortable. Now, when we explored it with her, when she was 4 years of age, she had a younger sister, and she overheard her mum say to a neighbor, "She's the pretty one, she's the clever one." And of course, she was the clever one, which by default made her then believe that she wasn't pretty. So everything about her life and how it shaped in the future, including relationships that she attracted, where she would almost be grateful for someone to have her in a relationship who would ultimately reject her and make her feel ugly again. So this kind of belief about herself.
Yeah.
And so in timeline therapy, what we say is you made a limiting decision. Based on the facts and based on the information that you heard, you made a decision that from here on now, I am ugly. It's just because we're very young when we do that, it just sits in the subconscious. So we don't actually walk around thinking we're ugly. It's just kind of part of our identity. But what it also means is that literally a split second before you heard that, you didn't have that belief. So with the timeline therapy, you're able to go back to just that moment just before it, where you didn't have that belief. And then through a various tools and methods, you dissolve that belief. And if you think about it, if you've had that belief for so long, then you will reinforce it day in, day out in lots of different ways. So it's like a domino effect of dissolving all those right up until now. But the other beautiful thing is that you're able to replace it with a belief that you would like to prefer to choose. Because the way NLP works is that when you decided you were ugly, that was made up in your imagination. So if you made up that in your imagination, then let's make up something else. Let's choose a better belief. And so to call herself, but first of all, and this is how Esteem was, she said, well, I just don't want to be ugly. And I was like, no, you get to choose. What would you really want? And she felt really self-conscious and stupid saying, I am beautiful. It's like, well, let's go for that one. So we did the exercise, and in the subconscious, it's not very obvious that something's happened. She didn't feel like suddenly I was beautiful. But over the coming weeks, she said, I just feel different. Sort of like put myself forward in meetings and standing my ground a bit more. And I went to eat something that's quite unhealthy. And I actually thought to myself, is this the way someone who really loves themselves would treat themselves? And so this subtle change in how she viewed herself, but very, very subtly. And and for me, that's the power of NLP, is changing those beliefs, because it's so firmly held, and a lot of the time we don't really identify with what are the beliefs that are the framework by which we live our lives that aren't serving us. And then just finally with that particular tool, anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. Also the same thing. These are the negative self-beliefs, the key ones that can often, and particularly when we come from an alcohol-free perspective, we've got a lot of those feelings rolling around in us. But quite often, again, these have happened to us when we were very young, how we were made to feel or how we experienced the world when we were younger. And if you think about it as well, when we're really, really young, and this can be even as an infant, we can feel an emotion, but we can't describe it. You just experience it. And particularly as a very small child, you wouldn't be able to say, I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling sadness. It's just an overwhelming feeling. And that's what's imprinted on us.
And children often act out in anger when
it stays with us.
Yeah, children often act out in anger.
On mute.
I have not. Do you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah. Sorry.
I know I was going to say children are acting out in anger quite often when they're hurt. And I've heard with what you said that the age of reason, 7 or 8 years old, was up till 7 or 8 years old is really our foundational programming. And that's how we call it the age of reason. At 7, up till then, you'll believe anything. And they call it the age of reason because at 7 or 8 is when your child starts saying, wait a minute, I don't have to do what you say. And whatever. And then just there's two levels we're talking about. On the pragmatic level, when the age of reason is hit, then we do have to practice perhaps prevention. But if it ends up that your child misbehaves, you may have to practice punishment. But that doesn't usually really take effect till after 7, or at least it didn't with mine. I didn't really need to practice much punishment before that. Of course, there was the odd time out, because up till then, they just did what I said.
Yeah. Did you ever read any Bruce Lipton stuff?
No. What does he write?
Bruce Lipton. He wrote The Honeymoon Effect, which is quite an interesting one.
What's that sound in the background that I hear? Is that chocolate?
It may be. Yeah. Is it loud?
No, it might affect the sound when I edit.
Let me just close the window just in case.
Maybe. It's not unpleasant. I'm just worried about interference.
Yeah, sure.
It's nice to get air. I had my door open before I came on. So
yeah. So Bruce Lipton, the biology of belief, where he talks about up until 0 to 7, we're just downloading information. We're just learning. And that's not only stuff like how to walk, how to hold a knife and fork, but almost like the template for what an adult is, template for what a relationship is, all these things that we're picking up. And it's only from 7 onwards, as you've said, where we start to develop that extra capacity. Of
making decisions.
Yeah.
That 4-year-old. That girl, that 4-year-old, she made a decision at 4. So we can't definitely make decisions. No, it's fascinating. And if I had to do it all over again, rather than going into the theater, I would have been a psychiatrist, psychologist. I know there's a difference. I really don't know what it is. And by all means, if people want to tell me in the comments, that's great. But bottom line is human behavior, probably because of my sales background, there is somewhat of a study of it for a different end goal, which, I have a civic job now, and I feel more purposeful and useful than I ever did in sales. So we'll just put it like that. But if I had to do it again, I would go down the more scientific role of human behavior, because I enjoy these conversations immensely.
Me too. And I've thought about that and thought maybe it was just that everything's happened exactly as it should have done.
Well, yeah, for sure. I have no regrets. I'm here in a beautiful sunny day with my dog.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
My 2 teenage sons are beautiful human beings, and I'm still in love with my husband. And I love the people that I work with, and sometimes like the job and so on and so forth. Like, I am so blessed. And you're right. If I had done it differently, I might not be here. But anyway.
Yeah, I think a lot of people who do get successful with becoming alcohol-free say, I wish I'd done this earlier. And I do often think in my own mind that actually everything that's led up to now is the reasons why you are where you are now.
Right. Yeah, I have a certain amount of depth that I didn't have, obviously, if you're continuing to grow, that is, that I have now. I feel it, that I didn't have in my 30s. And I don't mean a knowledge like I know when I've reached conclusions, because I'm not hopefully just about to die, which is conclusive. Like, I don't want to be conclusive in my findings. I want to always remain with an open heart and an open mind. However, there is some knowledge of some objective truths that really make me feel anchored. Do you find that with your knowledge?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've worked and managed in drugs and alcohol services for over 20 years. So I was always working in the field of
I didn't know that.
Yeah, for the NHS, National Health Service, I was kind of the hungover team manager. I managed an alcohol service, and I'd be in hangover mode Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday certain weeks, and hiding in the shadows and feeling quite closely and all those things.
Tell us about your life. Let's go back to maybe when you first started drinking. Feel free to fast forward whatever you want.
Yeah, sure. I mean, not untypically in the UK and in the northwest of England, working class background of just the usual thing of drinking at 14, 15 out in the park, and maybe if someone's parents are away in someone's house, and then that rites of passage at 18 or 16, 17, when you can get in certain pubs that didn't really care about the age. I always looked about 12 anyway when I was about 18, but just that usual normal socializing, and then getting into my 20s. And at the time in the early 90s, there was huge dance clubs of ecstasy and amphetamine and all those things. And then into my 30s with the getting married, having kids, and then becoming sophisticatedly drinking wine at home. But drinking like 2 or 3 bottles of wine. So I'd always had that kind of last man standing mentality myself about drinking. I was always good at the long game, and functioning at the same time. I wouldn't even suggest functioning alcoholic, because I'd have days of sobriety. I'd have days where I'd be more on my game, but particularly coping with, I always used to do something really stupid on a Sunday where I'd go to like 4 or 5 in the morning drinking when I had a really important thing on the Monday morning in work, a meeting or a presentation, or talk about self-sabotage and the anxiety of going into things, literally feeling like I could burst into tears because I'd got myself into this situation, and, worried about smelling of alcohol, and worried about, I'd go into some meetings and go, right, do not say anything, just keep quiet. And because I was still probably slightly intoxicated, I found myself after 10 minutes thinking, just shut up, you're kind of talking too much. such a whole mess of things. So I functioned like that for about 10, 15 years. And I did quite well and got into quite a good managerial position. Um, but functioning probably on about 40% of my capability, so it's not regrets, it's reflections that I could have probably been further ahead, whatever that means. But at the same time, it is what it
You
is as
weren't
well.
really in the driver's seat. That's what I find when I hear your story.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it was on default to just whatever vibrations maybe that are in the room, whatever, whoever's the strongest, and you follow here. So a bit chaotic that there's
Oh, completely.
no singleness, and myself included, but no singleness of purpose. And I guess there's a little bit of fortune. We were a little bit lucky not
Yeah.
to not to go to the skids, but I hear
Well,
you. Yeah.
it reminds me with you saying that of something I came across a while ago about the who's driving the bus.
Right.
And it's where you're either in the front seat with the big wheel of a bus, or
Yeah.
you're sat in the back seat,
Right. Drinking vodka.
yeah, sliding along as it's going. So
Exactly. Yeah.
a passenger in your own life or in the driving seat, and I think it's a good metaphor for where I am now. Definitely at the front of
Yeah,
the
you
bus.
popped into the driving seat, and with a partnership with perhaps with me, I look at my partnership with God, and it can be called life as well, is able to meet life on its terms as well. It's this dance that we do of surrender and agency,
Yeah,
surrender and taking back, okay, I got this one. Or, wouldn't you agree it's kind of a partnership?
I would, and I think with my life while I was drinking, I've described it more like a pendulum.
Yes, yes, yes.
I would often build up evidence that I was okay in equal measures to not okay.
Yes.
So that in those little periods where I was on my game, I'd be like, I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. The other thing that I've reflected on in being in health and social care is the additional barriers to people who are, I call them the fixers. So we're the fixers of people rather than the people that are broken.
Mm.
That's traditionally people coming into our services. So to identify myself as someone in need of help, I could always find some evidence of someone who was a lot worse off than me.
Well, that's
Uh,
something the alcoholic does. I
yeah.
mean, not to put a label on it. I'm reading for the third time. I'm in love with this book, and it's called Drinking a Love Story. I just love the way she writes, because she was a
Mm,
writer who was an alcoholic and then got sober. And they actually published her book posthumous. Unfortunately, she died uh,
uh,
very shortly after this brilliant book. And I didn't find out that she had died 25 years ago, 23 years ago, until after I'd finished it. I went, who is this Carolyn Knapp? Uh,
uh,
but she talks about all the different stages, and she's so poignant in her description of what you just described, was looking for evidence that people are worse. She talks about a woman on a bar stool in a
yeah,
bar that she would go to, but the woman was always there, always drinking gin, and
yeah,
always plastered, and would stay till closing. And for Caroline, this was the most comforting image, that this person in her
yeah,
life was, she's worse.
yeah, yeah.
It was
It's
comforting the way she
it's
describes it.
the
Yeah.
it's the validation that I'm okay or I'm
I'm
not that
okay.
bad.
And at 3 a.m, we're not okay. The horror sometimes comes up and bites, and the truth gnaws at you. At 3 a.m, it used to gnaw at me if I woke up from the 5 hours of pass out, and I'd have work the next day, and I knew I'd feel like shit, because I would basically be hungover. And of course, we would manage. And by the end of the day, we were fine and having our cocktail again. But in the middle of the night, sometimes it would gnaw at me. And the difference between her and the one at 5 p.m. having the cocktail was a universe apart.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I in my coaching sometimes when I are working with someone who has that literally never again on a Monday, and by
Yeah.
Thursday evening it's wine, is get them to have a conversation with each other.
Oh, good.
Um, Also, which one are you most likely to be more? Who's the real you out of those two characters? The truth is, there's no real
Neither.
answer, but quite often they'd say that person on a Monday morning because I'm suddenly in the cold light of day. this is bad for me, this is not good. And they would identify with that version of themselves more. So the frivolous one on a Thursday afternoon who's feeling excitable about a drink is trying to get them to engage with that person on a Monday morning, to get them to actually give them perspective of this is where it ends up, you know.
Well, and the person on a 5 o'clock cocktail hour, la 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 la, I find them quite vacant. Like when it's me, I'm not even there. I'm living superficially. I'm on the surface of who I am, and I'm in there hiding. The real me is gone. Okay, I'm out of here, because she is going to I'm going to have a different language. I'm going to talk in imitation. I'm not going to have an original thought.
Yes.
Everything I'm doing is copycat. Perhaps I'm copying my parents that drank. Perhaps I'm copying whoever I've just seen on the telly, as you call it. But I'm not really able to show up, because if in late stage, we'll just call it alcoholism. In late stage, that girl, the real you, can't show up because she would say, put the drink down. So you banish her.
Sober and Free podcast is brought to you by Korean skincare company called Rimmon. Rimmon is an incredible skincare and beauty company. I've been using this product for just over a year, but already in the first few days when I started using it, I would stop by the mirror and look, I couldn't believe it. Like already the next morning, you know, when I first got the product, I mean, I was barely doing more than washing my face and moisturizing. I didn't even tone. I didn't even know what it was for. I mean, the theory is that it's supposed to balance your pH and prepare you to blah, blah, blah. You know, I didn't care. I'm getting older, dull skin. This is just what I have to accept. And a friend came over and shared Rimmon with me, a 2-step cleanse. And like, how many steps do you want me to do? What? But I did all the things. I cleansed my face. I started with the oil and then a snow enzyme cleanser, washed them off. And then I put on a calming gel, which is a nice cooling gel. I guess it has 24 karat gold in it. And then a quick spritz spray. And then something called Boosie Boo. It's like, you want what? Boosie, what? Sounds so stupid. Okay. So it's a booster and then a serum and then the booster again and a bit of cream. Really, all in all, it probably takes a minute and 45 seconds. So I did it all. And already the next day, I'm not even kidding you, but my skin was glowing. And glowing skin is because of moisture. As you get older, now I know that your skin loses its glow because you lose moisture within the cells. And this is a hydrating skincare product. So what ends up happening is your gain is your dullness is gone, your glow is back, the redness reduced, hyperpigmentation all but gone. I had an age spot on my forehead that used to really bother me, and it's all but gone. And I can so easily cover it up now, whereas before I used to have to reapply concealer throughout the day. I used to bring it with me in my purse. And don't get me started on the luster cushion, which is a finishing makeup that is also part of the skincare system that gives you a flawless finish. So that's Rimmon. The link is in the show notes. I recommend that you pick some up. Okay, back to the podcast.
I would wholeheartedly recommend listening to on podcast of Bruce Lipton. He talks exactly about this in terms of the subconscious taking over. So
here we are going to psychoanalysts because we love the subject. So I want to go back to your story, and I took you off. I'm so sorry. I do that all the time.
Right.
So then you're in this drinking behavior, but you're in the profession of being a fixer, aren't you?
Yeah, I didn't identify as someone who had a problem.
Right.
I identified myself as someone who sorted out other people's problems.
Exactly.
So it was quite a comfortable moral position to be in. We don't even need to look at me. Let's look at you. You're the one that needs the help here, remember? So that was something that probably prolonged my lack of recognition of my issues for about 15, 20 years, probably. I had moments where I knew there was a problem, and I'd sometimes go on little breaks In England, they have dry January, which is a great one for after Christmas, where you go dry. But usually, people are doing it almost like a challenge where they can't wait to get to the 31st of
Well, and they're
January.
doing it to prove themselves that they don't have a problem. That's why they're doing it.
Yeah. And it's almost like it then lets you off for the rest of the year.
Exactly.
I do dry January. I've got some control.
Exactly.
My final break before my final break, had a heady summer of 2018 where I actually got married and went on honeymoon for 3 weeks and then came back, and we have canal barges in the UK, which are like little boats that you go on with the family. And anyway, I had a full 4 to 5 weeks of drinking. And at the end of August, someone suggested to me that I might be drinking a bit much, actually me and my partner. So stubbornly, I said, I'll stop tomorrow. I'll stop tomorrow to my birthday, which is October. And that was 40 days. And sure enough, I did it. Stopped for 40 days. On my birthday, I went out to celebrate and, of course, got wasted.
Yeah.
Even at the age of 46 or something, I think someone even possibly offered me some ecstasy on that night as well, which I was like, I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back. And from then onwards, my drinking escalates, and you hear this quite a lot, because each time I was drinking after that, I could say to myself, I've just proven that I'm in control.
Yep.
I can stop whenever I want because I've just done 40 days. It was no problem. And so it just escalated and escalated right the way through to the April. And by the April 2027, I wouldn't say it was worse than ever. It was just as bad as it always ever got. And the big fallout in my relationship meant that I woke up on the Sunday morning with almost a broken relationship, with a huge hangover, because I used to drink from Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And it was looking like the end of my relationship. So I had to do something. I had to do something at that point. And at that time, I was thinking, oh my God, I'm actually full of shit, aren't I? I say all these things all the time that I'm going to do and I don't do. And it was the first realization that I couldn't trust a word that I said that come out, because saying the words, I'm going to do this, was easy. It was almost like I'd already done the job by saying, I'm just not going to drink on these days. So I decided to go for a full 365 days, not to stop forever, just do whatever you want after 365 days. But actually, for the first time in your life, do this, and whatever happens, do 365 days. So, because I know there's always talk about one day at a time with some people, or break it down into little chunks. Because of my personality and my lack of ability to moderate and all or nothing, it was like, let's go big. 28 days, it's nothing. Let's do 365.
Wow.
And that was the start of something amazing, beautiful, wonderful that's going on to this day.
I've heard a lot of sobriety stories start like that. They went for a month and continued. And in your case, you'd already done that without the intention of continuing, but still it 365 morphed into more. And at the end of 365, you sound like Spider-Man. I can't remember the actor's name, the English guy who said, Tom Holland, he said,
Yes.
well, I was really upset that after 3 months, I can't remember how he puts it, because he has a slightly different take. After 3 months, he wasn't, oh, look at me, I did it. He was like, oh, look at me, I still really want to drink. And so he's got a very strong character to be able to say, well, that's a problem. And he's wise. He's like, well, that's a problem, because I don't know how he felt still connected to the strong desire after 3 months, because the physical withdrawal, by all evidence, has stopped, and yet he still felt that there was warning signs. So he decided to go another 3 months and go to his birthday, and his life had changed, which yours probably had too, Phil, in 365 days. And by all means, tell us more about that. How had your life changed?
Well, I think just reflecting on that, because it is so different for everyone. We all come with a whole different story to get us, some similarities, but we're all quite unique, aren't we, as individuals? And I would say that probably in the first 30 to 60 days, I was flying. I was like, I'm really enjoying the initial bits of no hangovers.
Yes. Pink
Feeling
cloud.
feeling sleep start to,
Yes.
and yeah, the pink cloud.
Yeah.
I then had, I remember around about day 70 feeling flat
Oh
and
yeah.
thinking, oh, I know the thoughts that come into your mind, like, I'm sure I was happier when I was drinking and things like that. And it's all momentary, but it was actually part of the feeling at the time. The wonderful thing was I was in a group by then, I think, called 1 Year No Beer. So you could ask questions and you could say, "Does anyone else had this?
And
What's going on?"
then they could say yes, because at 3 months, between 2 to 3 months, is
Yeah,
the flat line, is the boredom. And you know what? I heard it in my group. A woman said once, I don't know if I'm bored or depressed. And I loved that because it
yeah,
can feel so similar. And then
yeah.
if we're depressed, and the world will come up and tell you, well, you must do something about that. Maybe you have this thing called depression, this clinical thing. It's a human default. When things are not happening or we've got old stuff coming back, it's going to walk and talk like depression.
It
don't
is.
don't panic. You don't have a disease called depression. It is so normal, and you can act your way into that totally dissipating. Like, you can go and walk and breathe and get in community, and just do active things,
Well,
and
I
it
think
will
there's,
dissipate.
I think with me there was a thing that it's a trajectory that's just going up and up and up and up, and then suddenly for it to flatline,
Yes.
it was like, oh, this isn't what I had planned. And because I learned from that, it happened again at about day 140, funny enough, about the same again. But I knew about it by then, and I was prepared for it by then. And so I was like, oh, it's all right. I don't need to panic.
Yeah.
And actually, I don't need to buy into what I'm feeling right now.
Yeah. And you don't need to
Because
do anything about it almost.
no. And what I actually did do, and what I sort of explained to other people, was everything that's got me to this point maybe just needs reviewing, and maybe just needs freshening up, and maybe a couple more new routines, or just change some of the things around and just refresh the program a little bit, my own
Mhm.
personal one. And that tended to work because starting to set goals that were already achievable was just a little early signs of me starting to
And
set
Phil,
more
when you
goals.
say that it's important that you sit with yourself, if it requires sitting or walking or whatever, figure out what you want. Because when people, it's good to figure out what you don't want. That's a beginning. Abraham
Yeah,
Hicks used to talk about that. Know what you don't want. If that's a good place to start. Know what you
yeah,
don't want. But don't stay there, because then that'll, of course, become your life. But if that helps you identify what you don't want, but we sit there and we get a strong inclination, and it takes peace to find it, or at least it did for me, to figure out, well, what do you want? Because if talk to people that are in a 9 to 5 job and they hate it, if God were to himself were to come down and say, okay, you hate your job, well, what do you want instead? You came to this vision you have for your coaching, but you came to this first, then you could sit down and set your goals and stuff. So there has to be a gut check, a heart examination, where you go there and figure it out.
and I think some of it for me is about slipping into unconsciousness. So being conscious where you're the orchestrator of what you're going to do next and you're in control, to slip into subconscious programs, which is almost like creating an opportunity to open the door back to the comfortable, familiar. So without being mindful and conscious about, I'm not feeling great, so what do I need to do now to push this on? I think in the alcohol-free journey, you see it all the time. People get to 70 days, get to 100 days, get to however many days, and then go back to drinking. And it's fine because that's just what people say is part of the journey. I believe these are them crucial moments, or they were for me, where it's presenting you with an opportunity here to go from a place of discomfort back to something familiar. So that me saying things like, I'm sure I was happy when I was drinking, was almost like an opportunity that if I'd have followed that pathway, would have taken me back. So each time I came across something that was almost like a crossroads or a barrier, and I never had a great desire to drink, I just didn't want to feel how I was feeling in the moment. I want to be in that permanent elevated state that I've felt,
Not possible.
and that's what I want. Well, funnily enough, that not possible is a limiting belief.
I guess, yeah. For sure.
And don't worry, I pick myself up on my own limiting beliefs all the time. So I developed my own affirmation, which is I wake up happy and excited every single day. And when I say that to some people, they go, "Yeah, but that's not realistic, is it?" And it's like, that's up
It's
to
my
you.
reality. Yeah, right.
And what I actually mean when I say that is that that's my expectation. That's my holding myself up to the highest
Yeah.
of standards of I'm going to be here for who knows another 40 years. I want to wake up happy and excited every single day. Who wouldn't want to? And so if ever I wake up and I don't feel like that, instead of blaming the world's chaos, the colleague at work that I don't like or anything else, I say to myself, what is it I'm neglecting about myself right now? Because providing I do the things that help me to achieve waking up happy and excited every day, it's my responsibility. And so usually it's something like not enough sleep or not doing that exercise or not dealing with that phone call or something that I put off that's actually weighing down on me. So the waking up happy and excited every day is almost metaphorical in one sense, but the truth in the other sense of waking up and thinking, I feel okay. That's that's my aim. That's my
And I'm
goal.
going to be effective today. When I say I'm going to do something, I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to be calm and enjoy even the work. And there's work all over. I say at work sometimes when I've been asked to do something that's my work is varied. I have many, many different things I do at work because I help two departments. And when I'm asked to do maybe something else, I say, absolutely, no problem. It's all work. Like it's even when we go home and we have to take care of ourselves and we have to take care of the people we love and we have to take care of our space, either with working with a cleaning crew or doing the cleaning yourself. Even when you're working with someone and delegating, it's work. You're the delegator now. It's all, if you want to call it work, but maybe I don't, maybe that's limiting. Maybe I don't call it work. This is just life and I can enjoy all.
Yeah. And I think it's looking at things as gifts and opportunities, isn't it? Michael Singer talks about this.
I love Michael A. Singer.
Yeah. When you put a
Untethered
judgment,
Soul.
yes. And Living Untethered, the follow-up, which is great because that's more of a manual to actually implement his things. But just that thing about putting a judgment on something, whether it's a good or a bad situation.
Yes.
And actually making those judgments then creates whatever it is you choose.
For sure. It colors your whole day. The old wives' tale about the man with the son who broke his leg, and he broke his leg, and he's like, maybe. Oh, but then they came to draft for the war, and the son doesn't have to go. Oh, that's good that he doesn't have to go, and the father's like, maybe everything's maybe because, and he was this, ancient wise man who kept saying just, well, maybe, and he wouldn't pass judgment. And I had a wonderful living out opportunity. Sorry, I have stories. I should let you tell yours, but
it's okay.
I really liked what happened to my brain when I was training Taekwondo late in life. I became a black belt at 49 years old, short of 50 by 3 months or something. So in 2019, I was 50, but in September. But in June, I got my black belt in ITF Taekwondo. And when I started Taekwondo at 46 years old, I double graded because I did it in 3 years because my boys were in Taekwondo. I had a business collapse and I thought, well, I guess I have time now. What else am I going to do? I dropped them off. Might as well go in the studio. I didn't really think I'd get a black belt. I thought it was just bowling night. I'll just go and have fun. But then I was driving them to the competitive program and I said, I might as well join the competitive team. And so I'm a yellow belt fighting all these young black belts. I kind of got pushed around. And then because they don't hold back in the competitive practice, they do an advanced class, but in competitive, they'll kick your ass. So I have to be careful of my head and my neck. And but my point was one day in class, a 12-year-old came running up to me and said, I hate when we do class outside. In the summertime, they used to take us all to a park and in our lines in this big field, we used to do class outside. Sometimes it's windy, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's really sunny and hot, whichever, you're subject to the weather. And she said this to me, this 12-year-old, she said, I hate when we do class outside. And you know what I thought and then realized and then said to her, I said, oh, well, we have no choice. So I haven't really formed an opinion. Like I never bothered to decide for myself if I like this or if I don't like this.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even bother because in Taekwondo, it doesn't, and a lot of the martial arts, the discipline is really what you get because in the arena being all, there's four little areas of, not little, there's four areas of Taekwondo: kicking, sparring, kicking, step sparring, board breaking, patterns, and sparring. Like sparring and step sparring are different. But anyway, in those four disciplines, and the theology, because we actually had to write an exam, a 4-hour exam, all in Korean with all the science of it. Wow. In all of that, and getting the belts and following the disciplines, you actually become mentally more disciplined accidentally, because you can't get to the next belt, you can't get to the next stripe. And there's 7 stripes, and then that gets you the next belt. And then you can't do those things without becoming better, because the curriculum is well built. And this man who ran the Dojang, he founded it in 1992, and he was taught by the creator of Taekwondo, General Choi.
Wow.
So my point is, when something's well built, like your programs, your coaching methods, if you follow the methods, you will get better. You don't have to like strong arm yourself into it, because the curriculum
is
there. And so I was fascinated by that moment with that 12-year-old, because I realized the curriculum is working. I am a disciplined mind that doesn't bother with asking myself, do I like what they're asking me to do in whatever discipline? I'm just doing it.
Is that is it Marcus Aurelius who talks about practice having no opinion?
Yes, I think
it's so interesting, because what the hell does your opinion matter?
Well, and especially if you're going to do it anyway, if you're going to do it because you trust this trainer, this expert, because 4th degree and higher is called an expert. So your instructor, if you're going to trust them and do anything that they say, what does it matter?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. So a long way of explaining, but these are the visceral examples that you see in your life when you're practicing a program that is healing you and getting you into this place of peace. And it never was the craving for alcohol. It was a craving for peace for me.
Yeah. I think when I do talk about my journey to other people, I say, because it was about maybe before, but I always say 9 months, when I knew that was it, I was done. I was never going back. I just saw too many benefits. So I just knew. And I loved the idea that the second part of my life was going to be a whole different story. So yeah, definitely. And I think, so what was it you just said before that? Because it was part of
it. Well, I said about it wasn't a craving for alcohol. It was a craving for peace.
Yes, that was right. And I joke about it now, and I say, I didn't just decide one morning, right, today I'm going to look into childhood trauma. It just evolved in time. Yes. And again, when I think about neuro-linguistic programming, one of the presuppositions is that the subconscious will suppress emotions to protect us until we are ready to handle them. And so it came in that way organically, that just starting to get curious about, why was I the way I was? Why did I feel moments of sadness? And or I was starting to recognize my emotions from how I'd been. I needed confidence through drinking. I needed to feel like I fitted in better with drinking.
And why did you need it? What did you discover?
I think, well, just low self-esteem, didn't feel good enough, people pleaser, just craving love and affection, and probably my relationships were built on someone giving me that feelings of love, which when I took them back to early childhood, I was from a large family, 5 kids. Mum and dad loved us, but it's more about how I experienced the world as a young child. Busy parents, father often made redundant, and just a chaotic kind of noisy house. And I was the 4th of 5, and just feeling quite not
lost.
feeling that love and stuff like that, even though I know that I was loved.
And no significance. And
And
significance
yeah,
is one of our basic needs.
it is. And I was often, and this a lot of this stuff played out as an adult as well, where not confronting things and not being avoiding situations. So, like my mum talks about when I was 3 or 4, you love nothing better than getting on your little tractor and going up and down the road on your own all day. You didn't need anybody. You were just happy and content. What I kind of worked out as an adult was I felt safe.
Mm.
I felt safe from harm. I wasn't in conflict, that the noise and all those things. So it was kind of my own way of self-soothing when I was younger, from being I had 2 older brothers who, God bless them, they used to pick on me in the evenings. So a lot of my bedtimes were felt experienced through that. And I can hardly go back to my 2 brothers and blame them for anything because they were 6 and 5 themselves. So I can't,
Sure.
do you know what I mean? So it's coming to terms with not only what happened to you, but also the context and the perspective of it, that no one was doing anything wrong. Everyone was just doing their thing. But actually how it impacted on me as a child then led to um, the behaviors. And then it started to fit into my drinking and feeling confident.
Mhm.
And when I talk about, you mentioned briefly about that you become vacant. So I used to refer to my drinking version as the gunslinger.
Right.
Now I'm
I
quite
can
a,
hear the music from that movie, you know,
yeah,
The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
yeah,
Montgomery Cliff with the that whistle music. I can see you with your guns, and like you guys, you try to pick on me now.
yeah. Well, I imagine in my drinking days, the saloon door slamming open as I come in and saying, "I'm here. Let the party can start now."
What are you
I could,
wearing?
I, I could go into a place, befriend people in there, get in rounds with people, even get into their cocaine because they would suddenly want to be my
Yeah,
friend and all that stuff, and be super confident and be quick and
yeah,
be funny and
and
all
witty,
these things.
yeah, and
Everything
popular,
sharp,
and
popular.
popular.
And funny enough, one experience just before I stopped drinking, I'd spent almost a weekend with these guys hanging out and doing all them things for like way over 24 hours. On the Monday morning, when I was feeling like a really feeble, anxious version of myself, I saw one of them in the local supermarket and I panicked and darted behind an aisle
Right,
to
you're not.
avoid.
Yeah,
And then I was thinking, who am I? This
yeah,
gunslinger or this pathetic ghost of a version of me? And of course, I learned over time I was neither. I
yes.
was in between. So I was quietly confident, but I didn't need to command the room. I was self assured, but I didn't need that reassurance as much. I wasn't timid. I was just slightly introverted, but that was okay as well. So I learned that from lunging from the low to the high all the time, up and down, was playing crazy havoc with my mental health, with my values, because they
Hmm.
both had totally different values and identity was all mixed. And I think part of the big thing of getting way down the line was settling down to something that actually becomes something I could identify with properly. So that's who I am. And even down to things like recognizing normal, natural, appropriate anxiety and going, well, it's clearly not because of hangovers and it's not because of anything I bad have done. I'm just feeling that energy that actually is because I'm going to do a presentation. And that's quite a normal situation to have some level of
And
feeling.
remember we talked about the cells anticipating the drink, the cells anticipating going to be on stage talking. It's normal. Your body's
Yeah,
preparing to change gears. There's so
yeah,
many euphemisms that we could cite. You're riding your bike, you're running, you're about to sprint, whatever
yeah.
it might be. There's a preparation stage, and a lot of it is normal. And
It is. It is.
it's
And
about energy.
taking away the alcohol, but not only the alcohol, but the crazy memories of the film running through my head of what I've just been up to at the weekend.
Yes.
That's also playing out, and that's a hidden secret that I'm going into a professionals forum thinking I was a lunatic at the weekend, but
Yeah.
now I'm trying to be this sane, respectable manager. So
Well, the next morning, there is sometimes talk about this Drinking a Love Story, she talked about sort of fishing like a detective the next day. If you didn't remember, because I had a lot of memory blackouts.
Yeah.
And especially in the book called Blackout, it's a writer by
Yeah.
profession writes that one as well. And it's like being a detective the next day sometimes to figure out what happened without actually asking.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, what about last night? Hey, and then maybe they'll fill in a blank that you didn't really ask specifically about.
Yeah. I think my fear was always with certain people, particularly if it was a work still away or something like that, was, and it happened to me once when I was very in my 20s, and I went away to a hotel with a work colleagues. I used to work in a prison, and it was a big launch of something, and I got a round of applause as I came through to the breakfast,
Oh,
of people going, "Way, here he is!"
oh.
And
You didn't know
I'd
why?
been I'd been sat on a table in the daytime before with the governors and things, and I was quite intimidated and nervous. And they had free wine on the table, so I was drinking all that and then drinking all sorts. But that was the example of actually waking up and having that feedback that, oh my God, you were a complete mess last night. So later on in my life with my ex-wife, it was just literally coming down the stairs and just almost like testing the temperature of the room, just walking in, sitting down and saying morning. And I'm waiting for that feedback, like you said, without asking, and
Right.
just seeing how that landed. And if it landed okay, I'd be like, oh, thank God for that. But yeah, that was
If they
awful.
just say, yeah, you're a bit drunk, it's okay though.
Yeah, I'd be like, oh, thank God for that.
I didn't say anything stupid. And I would say a lot of stupid things. And I
Oh
would,
yeah,
as we're more boisterous. We have volume problems where we
yeah,
gauge when someone's born with mental defect and you've seen people who are physically and mentally disabled, and you know how they have a volume
yeah,
issue that they don't gauge their audience as far as volume, and it's fine. We forgive them because they're not whole or they're
yeah.
just different. Well, we get that when we're drinking. We're not whole. We're not um how can I say, we're not regulated. We're not
No,
regulated.
and as you said before about that vacant thing, I have often described it was like I was sat on the sofa while the gunslinger went out, representing on my behalf,
Yes.
representing me. I had no idea what he was up to.
Yeah.
I couldn't control what he was up to. I was just literally like a parent at home waiting, hoping that he was going to be okay.
Yes.
And
The
and
real you.
then and then where was he in the morning to face the wrath and stuff? He was nowhere to be seen. It was
And
me.
you had to take all his
I had
punishment and all
exactly.
his shame and all of that. Yeah. And at the end of the book, nothing good can come from this. I don't know if you're going to read it, but maybe you'll forget what I say because it is the end.
No, no, not at all. I've made a note.
At the end of the book, she goes out for a run, as many of us do, many of us sober ex-drinkers. And she goes out for a run and she takes off all her clothes and it's raining outside. And the end of her run was a rainy run. So she comes in soaked. So she takes off all her clothes at the doorway. And her husband's going to bring her a nice hot cup of tea. And she crawls into bed in the middle of the day, and she says something about, wow, I really don't have to argue between myself, my two or
Yeah,
three selves. I can just be her. And we know what she means.
yeah.
She can just be the one. And I don't know why the rain, and maybe it's the symbolism of being able to strip down naked in
Mm,
a house that you don't live in alone, the safety there, the love of your body simply by going out and giving it a good hard run, and then
mm.
doing it in the rain, which every emotionally charged scene in a movie, it's raining
It is. Yeah,
and they're proclaiming their love for each other or arguing. It's
yeah,
all of that. And it was very symbolic. And she's also a very good writer, Christy Coulter. But I was going to name my coaching business Just Be Her. But then I thought,
yeah.
well, I want to work with men as well. And then the whole her, him, her/him, and them with the woke movement. Oh
It's
my gosh, if I call
it's
it
a
Just Be
minefield.
Her, I'm going
Yeah.
to have haters come in. So anyway,
What
but
about just be you?
Just Be You. And then I thought it sounds like Sesame Street. So I
Okay.
abandoned it altogether, but I really loved that. Now,
Yeah.
5 or 6 years later, even though I've been sober 3 years, I've been on this journey since 2012,
Mm.
to learn about a my true self, and
Mm.
sobriety came with it, if that makes sense.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
Because I'm reconciled. It's all of me. It's not
Yeah.
my sober self. When I was in AA and sober, it was the sober AA good girl.
Yeah.
It wasn't all of me. And I
Yes.
still am not all of me. I still have parts that and that's where the work comes in. And it's pleasant work when you're sober, because it's discovery and you're integrating more and more of yourself. And even if they're painful memories, like you said about that professional is,
Yeah.
oh, it's funny that I said that professional. I meant your subconscious. It
Yeah.
takes care of you. It's allowing more of me in all the time, and it's pleasant because I'm not that bad of a person.
No. And have you ever looked at any internal family systems stuff?
Uh,
Um,
like the
doc,
focus on the family, Campbell.
Dr. No, Dr. Richard Schwartz,
No.
IFS, internal family systems, and he talks about parts of us. So where we are, the part of us that gets things done, the part of us that feels anxious, the part of us that, and so he does an exercise on this podcast, and I'll send you a link to the podcast because it's really good with Dr. Chatterjee, and it's almost like the part of him that's really anxious is trying to get his attention to speak up, and he visualizes having all these different parts in front, and he says, I hear what you're saying, and you are heard, but would you mind just stepping aside? And can the part of me that actually thinks about things in a rational way step forward? And so, what would you think about this situation? And it's almost like becoming aware of the different parts of you, and then being able to converse with them, engage with them, and actually utilize your strengths in that way and soothe those parts that are usually the traumatized parts of us that go into panic.
When you integrate, though, like I have been practicing integration. I had a very interesting dramatic shift at work, and I in my job, I had the person who just told me something unpleasant. I said, okay, let me get this straight. My sales training kicked in, and I say, okay, so what you're saying to me is that I have a bad attitude. Is that correct? And she said, well, not in this, but whatever. No, but is that what you said? Yes. Okay. And that I'm not a team player. Is that what you said? And then she said, yeah. I said, okay, I don't need this shit. And I knocked over my tool that I was using, a tripod with a phone. And I walked downstairs and I got my bag and I said, no, I just need to drive. I took my phone and my keys and I left. And I decided to go all the way home and celebrate my dog's birthday, because I've been working so much that my dog didn't get a birthday on the Tuesday and it's Thursday and he needs a birthday. I always post my puppy's birthday. So I texted my boss and I said, yeah, I'm going to celebrate Buck's birthday. I'll be back when I'm done my walk by the river. And I live half an hour away from work. And of course, they're all very, very shocked. But the point is, I was angry.
Yeah.
But I trusted myself. And listen to this, Phil. I'd had an excellent night's sleep. I'd worked hard the day before, but I'd had an excellent recuperative night's sleep. I'd rode my Peloton that morning and did a good spin up, because the way the instructor, he makes the neurological muscular connection at the beginning of the ride. He's a very good instructor, triathlete. And I knew I'd done a proper warm up, a good ride, gotten ready for work. So I could trust myself, if that makes sense. My energy was at its peak. So if I got angry, it was valid for me. And I needed to make the shift, because you've reached my boundary and you've pushed through it. And that's not allowed, because I love me and I don't need this shit, like literally. And so I don't mean to be so pedantic, but when my boundary was breached, I could be angry, but I wasn't neurotic.
Yeah.
And I walked and I ran, and I'd been setting up this manifestation for 2 days, because it's a very, very busy time at work. And I was doing 11-hour days working in 2 departments and running back and forth like a crazy person. And the day before, I said to one of my bosses, my favorite person at work, I said, oh my gosh, I have this fantasy. I said, I went out to my car to get my phone that I'd forgotten in there. I said, what if I brought my keys and just kept driving? How long would it take for you to figure out that I'd left? Like, I literally said that the day before, because work was edging me out. I was reaching my boundary. One of the reasons was as I don't have the tools in one of the departments that I'm working in. They didn't give me a computer. Like I have a computer at the one desk, but I need it at the other desk because the one is in a bullpen. It's a dispatch for 250 school buses. Well, I can't get any of the quiet work done. So I keep running back and forth and sending emails. Like I said, like a crazy person. So a shift needed to happen. And I wasn't in a managerial position, and the managers weren't protecting me or taking care of me and saying, I'm watching what she's doing. They were just taking the results of my work, which was good work, and just benefiting from it. But they were taking care of me. You don't take care of your parts, they will die and fall off. So I walked. And 4 managers, the owner's sister, the head of the department, my manager, and my other manager of both departments, all 4 of them on the phone on a conference call while I was just gotten in the car where it's quiet, like a sound booth, and my headphones on. That's not an accident. That's being in the flow of the universe. And I said, yep. And then they said, okay, this is what's going to happen. This person's going to show you more support. I said, great. How does that look? In what way? What does the support look like? Well, what if we get you an office and you'll have a new computer and a phone and everything else? So what I'm saying is if you storm out, but you get an upgrade and a corner office and a computer, then it was probably right. You probably needed to storm out. But Phil, I also took a risk.
Yeah.
But if I lost that job, which I need right now for a bunch of reasons, but if I lost that job because they didn't invite me back and they said, okay, fine, fuck you, and they hired somebody else, some poor patsy who would be running around like a crazy person, then that job is not for me at this current place I'm at.
No, absolutely. I think
we have to trust ourselves. And I'm talking about integration because you talked about the different parts of yourself. But when I was sitting in the car after I got back to the office and I was determined to post a birthday picture of my puppy because I said I was going to do that. And I'm impeccable with my word. Ruiz, 4 agreements. Be impeccable with your word. It wasn't about the post of the puppy. It was that I said I'm going to celebrate his birthday and do the birthday post. I had to do it before I walked back into that office. So for Susanna to show Susanna that I'm impeccable with my word, because our relationship with ourself, that's it, man. That is our relationship.
What I've discovered, or what I believe over this journey of mine, is that I mean, some people call it dialectic truths, things like that. So you can have either opposing theories that may be also true at the same time, or that sometimes things that may appear to be at odds with each other, I will take something from all of them. You know what I mean? So I think that, and I think that that's the openness of. There's a lot of theories that I certainly consume from different podcasts and different books and things like that, and it doesn't mean that I have to just believe one way. Do you know? So as I'm listening to you and talking about that, and you were sort of saying, I think you were saying that you're coming from a whole person perspective and how you believe that you behaved in that. Someone else might say that was the part of you that was actually the one who takes.
That's true.
You know, so everything's open to interpretation. And I love the fluidity of all these different things that that can coexist alongside each other. That's the exciting thing.
That's why I call it a dance. I was a dancer for 20 years. And the reason I love the theory of dance, I love dancing, and then therefore it bled into the actual reality of doing it. It's one of the reasons it's so pleasant. But in theory, it's also very pleasant because it is that beautiful combination of tension and relaxation coexisting. Tension and relaxation in effect are opposites, but they work when you get them in perfect opposition, if you will, completely finishing a movement over here before you go over there. That's when the dancer makes you stare. That's when you're agog. It's those are the movements that are and difficult to achieve, hence the adoration and all that. So dance, this life, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So when you meet up with a new person, whether they're going to be your client in the initial consultation, and what do you find is your just let's keep them sober for another 24 hours. What do you find is some of your recommendations, if you will, just to stay sober between when you talk to them now and when you talk to them the next time? How do you go about doing that?
Okay, so when I do get approached by somebody, mine is that I do a weekly video, although I've not done one for the last 2 weeks because of certain reasons. I've just been at events and things. I'll get people organically contacting me who feel as though I can help them. So I'll have a conversation with them. In a lot of cases, it's people who have do that dance, if you like, of getting to 3 or 4 days alcohol free and then just going back to drinking and stuck in that loop, that habit loop of never again on a Monday, and then by Thursday, actually, I don't think it was that bad. I feel okay, and then start the whole
That
dance
whole thing.
again. And so I'll just ask them about their drinking, about their behaviors, and maybe just talk to them a little bit about what might be going on for them. But really to find out what they've tried already, and then also to look at some firm commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Really, firm commitment to for the 28 days, but also to the commitment of checking in. So I do a weekly session with them, an hour session, but I have that interplay during every day of the week with somebody. So just a little video post, I might send one just to say, well done, day one, let's go, or that sort of thing. But I want them to check in with me with their reflections as they're going along. So if we were to meet the week after, 7 days later, to talk about how they felt during the week, they might have lost something along the way. So I want to hear in the moment how they're feeling positively or negatively about how they're getting on that day. The classic one is they finish work and they're going to come home and it's going to be that time of night when they would normally think about some wine. So obviously we put some strategies into place of how you can change things up a little bit, but really to get them to reflect on those uncomfortable feelings, thoughts, emotions that are happening, so that when we do talk, we can actually explore that in a little bit more detail.
Yeah, like what are
So
they actually looking to relieve when they
yeah,
come home for work? What do you actually think that you have? Fatigue, anxiety? Do you need to do a bit of a spin up, like go for a walk?
yeah,
What do you need?
and I'll talk about fading effect bias and things like that. So that and
Wasn't
that can
that bad?
happen in a very short space of time. That you're telling me today that you really want to do this, but you're also telling me you're just on the back of a big binge, and that's actually been the motivator. So over the next few days, you're going to change. And I say that if I'm getting videos off you on a regular basis, I will notice the changes in your language and your, you know,
Mm,
how
interesting.
they're operating. So day one, you're telling me, you talk to me this way. Day four, you even start saying little things like, got some friends over at the weekend.
Hmm.
And they won't even talk about drinking, but they'll just be just starting to tiptoe to
Hmm.
the edge where that then becomes a thing. Um, I also offer pretty much if you in England, supermarket is called Tesco. So I say if you find that you're in the queue with a bottle of wine in the supermarket at Tesco's, we know the plan's going wrong. So ring me.
Yeah,
So they can call me at that time when that's happening. Funny enough, the amount of people in the hundreds that I've helped, no one's ever phoned me when they've been in the queue at Tesco.
of course not.
So that's the thing that I tell people, and they're a bit incredulous themselves about, well, why wouldn't they phone you? And it's like, well, your brain will filter me out.
Well, not only that, you might talk them out of it.
Exactly. But there's actually a neuro thing that happens
Oh, I
where
see.
where the brain will actually filter that out as an option. And so sometimes genuinely when people say, I never thought,
Right.
it's like, I know, because your brain will filter things out that don't help with the purpose of the
Well,
mission and the
can I
reward.
can I offer a personal observation? When I was in Overeaters Anonymous, my very first addiction was with food. We'd get dopamine from food, and that's a whole other
Yeah,
conversation. But it's
yeah,
very powerful, where you go into comatose when you start learning what to eat and what combinations and all that. And I remember on the way into the store to get my whatever, because I was practicing going to meetings, and there is something to be said for community as part of the ingredient for your tools. Community in like-minded people is important. So I was in community and OA meetings, and on my way in, I would almost always get a very short moment of pause. It was
Yeah.
like, it was like, and it was consistent. It wasn't just, oh yeah, I kind of thought I should call. What was my sponsor's name? And I don't remember. Robin, I think Robin McKay. I think that was her name. I could call Robin, and then it was gone. And then I was buying, and then I was using, eating, whatever it is. You can even be addicted to picking arguments, I guess. I mean, you can be addicted to anything. But I really believe, Phil, and maybe this is self-fulfilling, I think there's objective truths to the design of the human, though. All these theories and all these subjective, like you said, ways to think about yourself. I love how you said you've consumed all these theories. There is some consistencies within all of us. And I think before we're about to act out, we can get moments of pause. They just come for a moment. And you can lean into that. If you even use that pause once, that wolf is going to get stronger. Make that call once. Take a breath once. Go back and sit in the car and pray once. Take your sober feet to the meeting once. Like, it doesn't have to mean that you're never ever going to drink again. Drink tomorrow, fine. But maybe lean on the group once.
Yeah.
Maybe call Phil once.
Yeah.
And then you might be able to string some of that together, because this is a deadly disease. This is my opportunity, because I knew I'd say it eventually, that my guest from about 3 weeks ago died before he was on. So he was a coach like you.
Oh, so sorry to hear.
Rocking and rolling with years of sobriety.
Wow.
Few years, I think 3 years, I think, like me. And he was just getting an additional certification. We'd been back and forth more than me and you even on, because Phil and I haven't talked that much. It was he was one of my moderators in my Facebook group. So he was in our group Zooms. I didn't get to know him super well on a one-on-one, but I did know him, and so on. And then he was coming on the podcast, as I've asked all of them. And it's a question of schedules sometimes, or maybe some shyness. And anyway, so he was scheduled, and then he March 3rd or something like that, he was scheduled. And then he said, well, you know what? Can we push it a week? Absolutely. And then we were pushing it a couple of times. And then mid-April, he disappeared. And I thought, oh, wow, he's really gotten busy. And, the wheels fell off. That happens.
Yeah.
Then, at the beginning of May, I reached out, and I got an answer from the wife. And she said, hi, this is whatever her name is, and blah blah's wife. I don't want to break his anonymity here.
Yeah.
He died April 11th, and the reason this is the opportunity to say it is because sometimes we get a pause right before we use, and that one time that we use could kill us.
Yeah.
As you said, you weren't opposed to even some ecstasy later in life. Well, maybe that was a time where, our listeners, or even ourselves, well, it's that one time where we have had a particularly horrible day, or God forbid something terrible happens. We do decide to go out and use a gateway drug that we know how to use, but then we get offered something that we don't really know how to use, like a pill or a drug.
Yeah.
Or make a mistake and slip and fall, or whatever. Drive a car. This is a deadly disease, and so
it's so sad, isn't it? Yeah, it's so sad. And I think it is the unsaid thing, because when we talk about, or when I talk about people, there's different people that I may categorize, if you like. So the people who come to me who are like me, where they can't moderate, don't have an off switch. And so the conversation I have with them is around, it's not going to get any better. Whether you take 28 days, whether you take 90 days, I say it's 6,000 days, 6 years, I am no better equipped to moderate. I'm no better equipped, so it's never going to be something that I will develop
You're
the
never
skills.
going to be able to drink like a gentleman. That's
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
term in the big book. It
Yeah,
says that you're not going to be able to. Sorry, but you're
but I
not going
think
to be able to drink like a gentleman.
but the truth is, and this is something that really helped my journey along the way, is when I realized that I didn't want to moderate.
No, you want to go to oblivion.
Yeah, it's like, why am I trying to moderate when that's the worst possible outcome for me? That would be torture. So that helped me to say, all or nothing. I'm either going to accept this shit in my life and feeling like this, or I'm going to have to make a fundamental change. So that changed. So the people that come to me are the people who are like me quite often, tend to attract, don't you, what
Yes.
resonates with you. Those who come where they just want to explore changing their relationship with alcohol, we treat them in a slightly different way. And I think the point I'm making, going back to the sad loss of that gentleman, is that ultimately we're all on a pathway to something really, really stark as death at the end of the day with this, with alcohol, even if we're at different stages, different levels, and that's what I'm saying. We we make it a bit more gentle for those people that are professing to not really have that much of a problem compared to the ones who are worse down, aren't
Well,
we?
I mean, you don't have to take the train all the way into the station to know where it's going.
No, no,
We
it's
got
true.
off early, and I said if it was working, we would still be out there because what we first got from it, we were no longer getting. It's not this moral high ground that I sit on and say, oh, it was bad for me, and I saw what was happening, so I decided the best thing for me was to reject. No, it was 10 years of frustration, 19 years
Yeah,
that I was trying to quit, and I found pockets of sobriety, and I learned, and then programs shifting from one drug, food, to another, alcohol. It was all of that. It's messy, but in the mess is a message.
there is. I know myself that if I was given the option now of going back to drinking without any of the hangovers or anything, I wouldn't take it.
Well, that's because you know the truth. See, that's the difference. Is the reason we have a holistic sobriety now is because in our sobriety we found sobriety.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
true sobriety. I said yesterday to, I posted a post about this, is as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, we come to AA with a secret harbored desire to keep drinking. But we
Mm,
need to get rid of that. That's the cancer
mm,
before we can truly be sober and free, to
mm.
perfectly round out this podcast with the reason I chose that very plain name. I wanted all kinds of exciting. I wanted to call this podcast Sorry for the Drinking. I wanted to, very Canadian, sorry for the drinking, right? We're so polite. But I thought, what is it that we're after? We're after sober and freedom.
Yeah, freedom, peace, contentment, all the nice, soft, floaty
All
feelings.
the pink cloud. And I agree with you. I love this new self-talk that I have adopted from you, that I can feel excellent every day. Thank you
Yeah,
for that.
are you welcome?
Why not?
I know, I know.
The
We can
best
believe
waiter,
we.
the best waiter I ever had in my life was dinner on the beach in Mexico with the waiter, like the table on the beach, the beautiful table. I'd earned the trip with all my sales, and then I had earned this, heightened reward, which was dinner on the beach. So we're the only ones out there, and we had this magnificent waiter. And everything we would ask for, he would very vehemently say to us, well, why not? It was
Yeah,
so cute. It's like,
yeah,
I think I was sober actually then, but whatever. Can we take our drinks, so maybe coffee and dessert, up to the main bar, and like up to the main bar there, because maybe the band had just begun or whatever we were asking. And he was like, well, of course, why not? And he was so excited about pleasing
yeah,
us.
yeah,
And so that's what I say now to myself about feeling excellent every day.
yeah.
Immense
I,
of that waiter, I say, well, why not?
well, why not? I love Marissa Peer, was it, who said that we tell ourselves lots of lies all
Yeah.
the time. So just tell better lies.
Right. That is the best. If we've got this skill that we honed when we were drinking, because drinking is the practice of lying, and alcohol lied to us. It's all lying.
Yeah.
So you're right. I'm going to turn, as we're able to do later in life. We're so clever. We're able to really turn our powers into something more effective. And our superpower is sobriety.
Absolutely.
Because we were drinkers.
Yeah.
You know? So it's been absolutely stunning to have you on my show. I'm so honored.
Oh, thank you.
How can we get in touch with you? Of course, I will also include it in the show notes, but do tell us, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you, perhaps for some sober coaching?
If they want to get in touch, just look for me on Facebook. I'm on Instagram as well, but I never remember the name for it. But on Facebook and Phil Jordan Coaching and Mentoring.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. And I saw coaching services. Is that?
Yeah.
Where?
So yeah, just make contact with me by any which way you can, and then we have a conversation. And then really, I don't always coach. I only coach when I'm asked to coach. So I don't go looking for it, because I'm quite comfortable when I have coaching, when I don't have coaching. So whenever someone does contact me, we decide whether it's going to serve them. So
you do
best.
A consultation sort of thing.
Yeah.
To decide whether or not what you have to offer is for them, and you can both decide. You decide as well if they're a fit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Or if not me, then I've got many contacts that I can always signpost to people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I will be including that, and thank you. And let's stay in touch.
Yeah, I will do. Okay, brilliant. Lovely to speak to you.
Yeah, lovely to speak to you as well.
It's like a sunrise warming us up. Been spending all your time lifting me up. All of the things I've been worrying seem to be disappearing now, reminding me what days should be made of.
If you or anyone close to you is struggling with alcohol use disorder, dependency, alcoholism, or anything to do with addiction, please reach out to your local professional. Please know that the opinions expressed here are those of the person that shared them and by no means applies to everyone. For help and support and continued companionship through your struggles, feel free to reach out to us at Sober and Free Facebook group. There's always someone up and ready to answer your question or just be with you, not as a professional, but just as a cohort in the addiction struggle in life. And that's Sober and Free on Facebook, a group by Susanna Porowski. And with that, I wish you a happy, sober day.
Sunshine betting on a good time. I've been chasing